Hey guys, so I'd like to show you some of our John Deere special tools that we use for diagnostics and testing. The first thing we have here is one of the electronic gauges. You can see the part number on top of it right there. You can find this on Service Guard. Inside you'll have one of the digital meters, and then you'll have one or more of the pressure transducers. The ones that we have here are 500, 5,000, and 10,000. Normally we use the 5,000s for pretty much everything. We've found that they work pretty good even at lower pressures, and then the 10,000 we normally save for testing pressures on hydrostatic drives. So the meter itself, you might have a couple of different ones. The one on the left right here, you can only hook one pressure transducer up to, and then on the one on the right, you can actually hook up to 4 onto it. And then there's a sensor select button that you use to select which one you want to read off of. You need to make sure that your 4 pressure transducers that you have are all the same. You can't have a mixture of them like I've got on the table right here. You need to make sure that they're all the same color. And let's say, for example, you use the 5,000, the red one. Then what you would do is you would turn that to 5,000. You need to make sure to zero it, and then you're ready to test your pressure. So those are pretty nice to use, especially if you're going to do differential pressure, or if you're going to test multiple circuits without shutting the engine off. And then make sure you shut it off so it doesn't run the battery dead. The next one right here is one of the older master test kits. These were new back with like 4010s, 4020s, the older stuff like that. And there's a variety of gauges inside of here, gauges and fittings. Normally you'll have a 5,000, a 300, 100. Here it looks like we've got 2 of the 300s, another 5,000, and a 60. So there's a variety of them in there. That's going to cover the majority of what you would need. And then underneath, get that thing pulled out of there. Underneath here, you're going to have some hoses. Now, something to pay attention to with the hoses that are in here. This is kind of a hard plastic rubber. It's only rated for 3,000 psi. Okay, this worked fine on older systems where your pressure was going to be around 2,300, but don't use this on new stuff where your stall pressure will probably be 3,000. The next thing that's in here, this is actually not part of the test kit. This is just a homemade thing, but at most of your dealerships, you're probably going to have something similar to this. It may be on about a 2 or 3 foot long hose, but I think it's pretty handy to have one like this where it's pretty stiff. You can stick that into an SCV coupler, and then you can rotate the gauge so that you can see it from up in the cab, and then you can check your standby pressure, or you can check for leakage on SCVs from that. And then make sure that you've always got an adapter. That's an adapter to go from the ISO to the old John Deere style. The next thing that we've got over here is one of the kits, the Master Hydraulic Kit, Master Hydraulic Diagnostic Kit. And this has the compound gauge or triple gauge, this thing right here. You've got 3 separate gauges, and then the two lower pressure gauges have a little check valve underneath that blocks pressure oil to these. If the pressure gets too high, that way you don't damage those. So we've got a 160, a 600, and a 5,000. So you can use this to accurately test pressure all the way up to 5,000 psi. And it works really good in situations where you need to accurately measure a low pressure and a high pressure without shutting the tractor off or disconnecting anything. So let's have a look at some of the other stuff in here. We've got a couple of hoses. These hoses are rated for 5,000 psi, so they're good to use on any of the newer stuff. Do not use them for hydros on combines though, because they will be more than that. The next thing that we have here is a variable restrictor. It has a male and female coupler on it. Basically what you can do is just hook this in series with a jumper hose, And then if you need to heat hydraulic oil this way, you can do that. We've already talked about ways to heat hydraulic oil, but putting a restriction on flowing oil is a good way to do it. You can do it with this restrictor right here, or you can actually do it with a flow meter. The next thing that we have is the 2-valve manifold. What you can do is take the 2 hoses from this test kit, hook one hose from there to a test port on the tractor, and one from there to a test port on the tractor, and then your compound gauge goes on to the middle, like that. Now what you can do is accurately measure 2 different spots, not at the same time, but you can actually measure from 2 different places without shutting the tractor off. So if I wanted to measure pressure right here, I would open this valve, close this one, and then pressure would come up this way and to my gauges. If I want to measure pressure from this side, then I close that one first, and then I open this up, and then pressure comes in this way and goes back up to my gauges again. Okay, so it's probably the next best thing to using one of the electronic gauges to test differential pressure. This works pretty well. Probably one of the biggest problems that we have in doing that is that oftentimes the hoses won't quite be long enough. So the next tool that we have over here is a flow meter. This is one of the inline flow meters. The inlet side is always the side closest to the gauge. Okay, so oil flows in this way. Pressure goes past the gauge, then it goes past a restrictor, and then the oil that goes through the restrictor comes up in here where the piston and the cone are at. Whenever oil passes and pushes on the cone, then this little indicator moves up, and then the return oil comes out on this side, and you would have one hose coming from the SCV and then the other hose going back to the SCV. The hoses on the end here just have ISO tips on them, and of course you could put adapters on them if you needed to go to the old John Deere style. But that right there is one of the old flow meters. Make absolutely sure that the restrictor is opened up all the way before you start flowing oil through this. To open it all the way, you just turn it to the left. It's normal right-hand thread.